Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Evers from the Chrome Enterprise Partnership team. We have been working together with big partners like Citrix very successfully for a good number of years now. Citrix virtual apps and desktops and DaaS are very important in many organizations, and therefore optimizing the user experience is essential. Today, I'm going to take this opportunity to show you how to achieve that in a more direct way than you might expect with the help of the Citrix configuration tool. And we'll look at creating a configuration for the Citrix Workspace app, or CWA for short, with some basic settings. And at the end, we will push that with the Google Admin Console to a managed ChromeOS device and see how that appears there. So how do we get the tool then? Citrix publish a configuration tool for each version of the CWA. Don't worry, they're forwards compatible. The easiest way to download is to search for CWA ChromeOS and open the second result. But don't worry, also put the link in the description of the video. So let me show you. We search for CWA ChromeOS. The first one will get us to the documentation. The second one will get us to the actual release that's out there. We click on that and we scroll down, extend here at the configuration utility tool and download a zip file after clicking yes, I accept. So there's no direct link because of the pop-up. We have downloaded this now. So after extracting the archive, you can just go into the configuration utility folder. There you can start the tool by opening the index.html in any of your browsers. Okay, it will look like this. You click on Create New, select Citrix Workspace App for ChromeOS. Don't go with the default, go with Google Policy, and then click Continue. So before we start playing with those settings, there are two notes that I want to share from my experience. First of all, be mindful of the JSON format and use a text editor, ideally one that can parse code as the files can get long down the line. That way you have a clean copy and paste without any funny characters and can keep the formatting, especially the indentation, intact when handling that. And the other thing is don't use the non-web storefront stores. If you see something like /discovery or PN agent at the end there, that will lead to problems. Chrome OS is a web-first operating system, so we use the web stores and the technology behind it. You might be familiar with that from the receiver for HTML5. So let's get started with the actual settings. First of all, we should give the users a store or stores pre-configured because we don't want them to enter the store URL each and every time they open a Citrix Workspace app. So let's hop over to the configuration tool. We need to scroll to the right. If need be, we can use that little blue bar here. And we go here to store_settings. I've prepared this a little bit. Can put in a name. We can allow the users to edit the store name if they want to. Let's disable that for now. Important thing is to put in your Citrix Cloud or cloud.com workspace URL, or as discussed, the store web URL here in rf_web, like I did here. You might want to add secondary stores for test or other client environments so that the users can switch between them. That's relatively straightforward. Let's start over again. On this page, we scroll down to where it says secondary stores. We can give every store a name. And again, there's the RF for web. And here's the one little gotcha. You need to click at the very bottom on Add Store. And as soon as you do that, the entries disappear, but they're saved in the background. We'll see that in the configuration file. So the Teams optimization is one of the most commonly used features. And it's really easy to configure because it's actually enabled by default. But there are some of the settings that we can play with. So if we scroll about 2/3 of the way down here, I have MS Teams optimization. By default, screen sharing, so whole screen, and app sharing, individual apps and tabs are disabled for security reasons. And the other thing that is disabled by default is background effects, where it blurs out the background in a video. That can have a performance impact on very low-powered clients. So it's disabled by default as well. You can play around with these. They're literally on-off switches. And all the other features, no good reason to disable them except when you're doing some troubleshooting. The other one is Zoom optimization, which has its own virtual channel. It's actually not enabled by default, but it's super easy to turn on. So we just need to use the blue bar here to scroll all the way to the right. There's Zoom in its own tab. There's only one button. Enable it here, and it will add all these configuration lines to the JSON config in the end. There's only one tiny gotcha with Zoom optimization in general, that you need to use the right VDI variant for the Zoom client to put on your VDA into your golden image, or however you want to install that. Finally, before we export the settings, here are two little tweaks to round off the configuration that I generally like to include. So let's head over to the configuration tool again. We go to UI and scroll halfway down where it says available. In general, these might have to be tweaked for specific device categories like notebooks with small but very high DPI screens. But a good starting point is firstly, device pixel ratio. Secondly, full screen, especially if the users have access to full desktops, as we normally want to open them in full screen instead of maximized on top of the launcher bar in ChromeOS. The second one is Keep Alive, which will override ChromeOS timeout settings so that the Citrix Studio policy will take over. This is especially important for managed guest sessions that might have a session duration configured, regardless of user activity. After all, we don't want users to be disconnected unnecessarily. In the end, it's a balance between convenience and security. So that's very easy to set up. So let's head over again. It's under Power Settings. We have two options here. We normally want display so that screens stay on while the Citrix session is connected and not idle. System would dim the screen even though we have an active Citrix session still, and it's more of a power saving feature for permanent connections. So let's stick with display and move on with that. Now that we have completed the configuration, we just go to the download button here and we get a policy.txt file. Let's have a closer look. So the config tool generated a good 60 lines or so of configuration that we can put into the Google Admin Console. All the settings that we made before are here. Second store is there, store configuration, full screen, all these good things. One thing I wanted to call out is this one here, allow edit store name. If you remember or watch back in the video, we changed that from the default and then back to the default again. So it still falls as the default, but as soon as you start messing with those, they get put in explicitly. And if you left it alone, it wouldn't show up here in the first place. So it could be safely deleted and wouldn't change a thing. But as you change these down the line, they can add to clutter, and sometimes might be advisable to start fresh with the settings that you have developed throughout. So how do we apply the settings? Just go to the Google Admin Console under admin.google.com. I'm already in my test view. I have pushed the Citrix Workspace app to end users, force install and pin it for convenience, but there's no configuration yet. So you can see here, you can enter the JSON value, and we can just paste the configuration and click Save at the top right here. And now it will apply to users in this OU or endpoints if we use managed guest sessions, MGS, or kiosks. It should happen in a minute or less. Lastly, let's talk a bit about iterations for your configuration and some troubleshooting tips. As mentioned before, you should have a basic management strategy for the configuration files, say a documented location where you store them, maybe versioning, and use the text editor with code features. The Google Admin Console checks if it's technically a valid JSON, so it catches simple mistakes like not copying the last closing bracket. Let me show you quickly. If we scroll down and I delete this, say I copy and pasted that wrong, cannot save, one error found. But if the setting is valid, it will be pushed to the endpoint as is. As you can see here, I've prepared a sneaky example. If I click Save, I will just go through, even though there is a bit of misconfiguration here. If you look very closely, store settings is on the same level as secondary stores, or the other way around, even though secondary stores should be under store settings. So it's one level higher than it should be, and once it's on the endpoint, the Citrix Workspace app will just ignore it. Bottom line is, if you made a change in the configuration and are wondering why you don't see it being applied on the endpoint, paste the configuration in your editor, have a close look at the brackets and whatnot. On the endpoint, we can go to Chrome Policy, scroll all the way down, and as we can see, the store setting is there, but the secondary store is missing, as we previously discussed. That brings us to the end of this little overview, and I hope you got some insights. You can check the latest details in the official documentation. Feel free to comment here, contact me directly via email, or find me on LinkedIn. Thanks, see you soon, and Slán.